started a Erica, you started a PAC.
Yes.
Tell us about the PAC.
So a PAC is a political action committee, and my PAC is named the My Body PAC, and we are dedicated to building power around bodily autonomy at a local level this election cycle.
A lot of times people think, okay, it's a PAC, and you're thinking it takes a lot of money, a lot of resources.
I started my PAC with no money. I mean, you can set up a PAC with $10, and you can do it in a day.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not that hard. You just have to be willing to think that you can. And I think historically Black folks have not had the opportunity to learn how to build political power through PACs. It's not tax refundable, so you have to have people in your network that actually have the disposable income to invest in policy. So historically Black folks haven't really had that. So there's very few Black PACs, and I am one of the few now.
So why was it so important for you to do this?
Because as a 31-year-old Black woman living in a country where my rights have been taken away from me and the existing infrastructure currently has not reached me in a way to mobilize and radicalize me, I'm just in a vacuum of frustration. I thought that why not create an opportunity to bring people together around the idea of autonomy is democracy. And autonomy is not limited to your reproductive rights. It's truly about having agency over your life in general. It's really no one's business what you decide to do with your life as long as you're not causing harm to someone. So I wanted to do it in a more culturally relevant way, in a very unapologetic way. And I think a PAC really allows me to do that.
And being here at the DNC, what do you hope that it will do for your PAC?
Well, the last time I came to the DNC, I was an intern in 2016. And that was a very different time. So now to come back, almost 10 years later and be able to have my own PAC, I just want people to know that I'm in the space. It's a very exclusive space and people don't like to share power, right? That's how power is kept because it's exclusive. But I personally want to disrupt that a little bit by saying, yes, a Black girl from Brooklyn with very minimal dollars and funding can come into the DNC and launch a PAC and do it unapologetically, just like everyone else. It's important to me for young people to see by example that they can build power too. They don't have to go out into the street and rally, cry hopelessly. They can set up a PAC, host a party, raise some money, and start shifting policy. Democracy is won at a local level. Freedom is won at a local level. The Montgomery bus boycott was a local organized movement before it became a national civil rights call to action. So for us to learn from our ancestors and the blueprint that they created for us during a time where so many people have lost their rights, again, including voting rights, we now have to focus back locally.
How big of an issue has the Dobbs decision been for young women of color?
It's been incredibly impactful for young women of color. Young women in the South have to fly all the way to Chicago just to access emergency care for their bodies, So the trip that many people made today is the same trip that thousands of women, if not hundreds of thousands or millions of women have to take each year just to access care. And that's the impact that it has, is that you now have places where people who have enough privilege to be able to travel can access care, and people who don't simply have to be forced to live in a world that they don't necessarily want to live in. And a lot of people try to criticize the young generation and how we are responding to the time that we're in. But I think that no one has taken the opportunity to educate us on how to properly radicalize ourselves in a way that is effective. As someone who's worked in elections, this is my third presidential election, I want to apply my knowledge as an organizer and share it in a cultural way where young people can say, yo, I can start a PAC. Oh my God, I can run for office. Wow, I can build power, because power is something that should be built collectively. And right now we live in a world where people are trying to keep it hush-hush. And they're not sharing it with the next generation. They're telling us all the things that we're doing wrong and not really guiding us into a way to do it right. And the cultural leaders of our time, those are not the folks who are going to help us get our rights back. They're going to help us make some good music. They're going to help us, wear some cool clothes. But we don't really have any political leaders that are young, that are leading us. And I hope that I can offer some leadership in that way through my PAC. Young people want to support this country. They want a future that they see themselves in, and they want to fight for that on this election cycle, which is why we have to give them a message that they understand. I think young people want to feel like they have options, right? And right now we're taking their options away. We can just, create messaging and opportunity that reinstills options and autonomy, over people's lives and their futures. Then, I think that young people will be more willing to participate in the system. But similarly, you have across the board in all industries a lot of, OGs not really willing to step aside and let a young person take up space. And I think that happens in every generation. But I think we can't afford that right now. We have to let people lead. And, a lot of our most radical leaders were under 25.
Welcome to the National Newspaper Publicists Association's Let It Be Known. Erica Claudio, My Body Pack. We really had a nice discussion with her, as you can see there. Really was a absolute pleasure speaking with this young lady who she's getting after it. It's just, hey, she's not sitting back. She's going after it, and her my future pact is up and running. Yeah, she is certainly welcoming contributions and other sorts of help to get that really moving. As she said, younger ones. She gave us an idea and insight on how the Dobbs decision even affected the younger ones and what's at stake going forward. So it's really was interesting to see such a to see young people, and she wasn't the only one. We saw a lot of young people, and continue to check out Let It Be Known's YouTube and also Instagram, and see more of what we was doing over at the DNC. Lots and lots of stuff, just like that you just saw with Erica Claudio. So check us out. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the daughter of Rep. Sheila Jackson Lee. She wants to finish her mother's term, and we'll see how that's going. And speaking of the election, wow, a Louisiana, and this has everything to do with the election. A Louisiana court specifically gave a judge appointed by Donald Trump during his presidency permanent. They permanently blocked environmental civil rights protections for Black communities. We're going to talk about that this morning too. Also, a Black Arizona man who suffers from knee-related health problems called the police to report that his daughter had been kidnapped. But wait till you hear how the police victimized him and how the victimization continued even with his job. Vice President Kamala Harris and Republican nominee, the twice impeached former President Donald Trump, are reportedly at odds over whether to allow host ABC News to mute its microphones when it is not their turn to speak during the planned September 10th presidential debate. What's interesting about that, and we'll talk about this in a bit, Trump's team is in agreement with Vice President Harris's team. It is Trump who appears to be making excuses. Don't think he wants, you don't think that the defendant wants to face the prosecutor. That's what it seems like. But we'll talk about that as well. Republican group and Avid Trump-supporting organizers say, and get this, folks. Are you ready for this? They say Kamala Harris can't be president for one big reason. She's a slave. Oh yeah, we're gonna get into that this morning too. A little bit of baseball history. We brought you some baseball yesterday. I know it's Barry Bonds. What I think of Barry Bonds, greatest player ever. But today, something that never happened in the history of Major League Baseball. Probably it never happened in football or basketball or hockey either. Any team sport. A guy named Danny Jansen became the first player in the history of the game to play for both teams in the same game when the Boston Red Sox and the Toronto Blue Jays resumed a suspended game from June 26th on Monday afternoon. We'll tell you how that uh, turned out. And yes, we're gonna answer Power 96's morning rant. USA Today says um, it's not from Trump, and technically they're talking about Project 2025, but they're correct, but inherently their headline is still misleading. The Heritage Foundation put Project 2025 together, and those at the foundation who put it together are people who have worked very, very closely to Trump. Many worked under Trump. In fact, 31 of Project 2025's 38 authors and editors worked in Trump's first administration. So yeah, it's a Trump. It's a Trump manifesto as much as it is a Heritage Foundation manifesto. But most importantly today, here's another tidbit about the racist manifesto that will go in full effect if Trump wins the White House. We told you that there would be no, we've been talking about this. Greer pointed it out. We've pointed it out that, and Trump himself has pointed out about this dictatorship. But it's here it is in black and white. If Trump wins the White House, we told you there would be no more elections. He told you that. He also said that he said recently if folks he told folks if they vote for him, they won't have to worry about voting again. Well, Project 2025 calls for the Department of Justice to investigate election officials, and in this case in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, in Wisconsin, over the 2020 election. Pennsylvania, of course, and Georgia, crucial swing states, one of the places where Trump tried to overturn his loss to Joe Biden in 2020. Well, Project 2025 would nearly eliminate federal civil rights enforcement and redirect the DOJ to investigate alleged fraud in state level voting registrations, state level voting. It would make it easier for the government to prosecute state level election officials if they don't comply with, well, overturning an election. Folks, look, can't tell you what to do, wouldn't tell you what to do, how to do it. But vote for Donald Trump. If Donald Trump is voted in, that's it. As he said himself, I'm just going to repeat what he said because this is a fact. You will never have to worry about voting again. That's just the bottom line. It's bottom line. He says he'll be a dictator on day one. This, several people have said this, at the DNC. I think Maxine Waters was one of them. When a person tells you who they are, believe them the first time. When a person shows you who they are, believe them. Believe them. I mean, you all have had experiences where somebody has absolutely shown who they are. Well, it's up to you to take in that information and use it and proceed with caution. I mean, we've all had it. So there you have it. Well, the daughter of the late U.S. Rep. Sheila Jackson Lee, who died last month after being diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, will seek to finish her mother's term in office. Erica Lee Carter submitted paperwork to be a candidate in a special election in which voters will choose who will complete Sheila Jackson Lee's 2-year term representing the Houston Congressional District. Carter, just like her mother, is running as a Democrat. Paperwork filed with the Texas Secretary of State's office shows that besides Carter, 2 Republican candidates are also vying to finish out Sheila Jackson Lee's term. The district is solidly Democratic, though. The special election is set for November 5th, which, of course, is the same day voters will also decide who will um, served the next 2 years in various congressional districts. Earlier this month, former Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner was chosen by local Democratic precinct chairs as the party's nominee. Jackson Lee had already won the Democratic nominee for what would have been a 16th term before she died on July the 19th. If her daughter wins the special election, she would serve until the next Congress, which will begin work in January. She says, I will fight with her passion and ferocity for the people of the 18th to regain their representation in the fight for justice, equality, healthcare, human rights, and economic opportunity for all. We will do this together, she said. It'll be interesting because Sheila Jackson Lee, of course, was very, very popular. I mean, she had her moments where media tried to well, I mean, the media reported on certain things, her alleged explosive uh, attitude, I guess, or ferociousness towards some of her staffers when they got something wrong. So she did not play. In other words, is how we couch it, right? She she don't play. So here again, though, where folks have to be concerned. You elect someone into office, particularly a president in this case, and they get to fill out federal benches. We all often think about the president and the Supreme Court, which is true. We know that there are what is it, six? How many conservatives on that Supreme Court? Six, right? Six, four of them, or three or four of them was Trump appointed. But the federal benches are appointed positions as well. And so the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Louisiana issued a permanent injunction that prevents the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and the Department of Justice from using Title VI of the Civil Rights Act to control how Louisiana regulates polluting facilities. Judge James Kane, who was appointed by Donald Trump, ruled his ruling, I should say, solidifies an earlier decision which blocked the EPA from imposing or enforcing so-called disparate impact-based requirements in its permitting decisions. In other words, folks, that they will not protect Black communities from environmental poison. Um, they decided, listen, everything's on the table now. We're not, the sheets are off. Everybody's out the closet. And this is how we're going to do things. And it goes back to Project 2025. And Power 96, he calls it Cancer Alley, the only 100 miles of land that the gentrification people will not touch. Yeah, isn't that interesting that um, you go to various places? Obviously, we know the story of Harlem. We know the story of DC, San Francisco, gentrification. Um, but as he points out, in that area in Louisiana, they won't touch it. They will not touch it. And Mike V says, I keep saying Black folks need to be involved in the climate impact and environmental movement. Earth Justice, a nonprofit environmental law organization, called the court's ruling a significant setback for civil rights and environmental justice in the state of Louisiana. Patricia Sims of Earth Justice said it could embolden other states to seek similar exceptions and discourage other federal agencies from implementing civil rights enforcement. Isn't that the goal? Once again, if you read Project 2025, in fact, go rewind and go back to the DNC. And what's that young funny comedian from Saturday Night Live? Oh gosh, Keenan and Kel. Yeah, Keenan. You see how I do stuff. Keenan really did a phenomenal job of interviewing folks about their situation, and then going verse by verse pretty much on why they're in trouble under Project 2025. And this is another thing. There will be no more civil rights division of the DOJ. Civil rights laws will disappear altogether. And under Project 25, we've already seen under Project 2025 the DE&I situation. Affirmative action has gone away, among other things. So this is all a part of it, folks. This is all a part of it. And I'll tell you what else is a part of it. We keep talking about law enforcement and communities of color, and what happens when individuals of color in particular have to interact with law enforcement. In this case, we go to Arizona. Darnay Cockrell had called the police for help, but he was instead handcuffed and forced to the ground by responding officers. The audio and body cam footage, which was released to the public, showed the consequences that this man still faces. They set up a GoFundMe page, his neighbor has, in which it says, despite no crime having occurred, the officers persisted with these demands of forcing him to his knees and handcuffing him. The reason Darnay refused to go get on the ground, he just had surgery on his knees. And you could see in the photos and in the video, these huge knee braces he was wearing. He was simply pleading with the police, if you're going to handcuff me, but please don't put me on the ground. They forced him to the ground, they knee in his back, and he said, if you put me on the ground, it's going to cause more problems. I may not be able to get up, et cetera, et cetera. Well, what happened here, and there you see, and why is that even necessary, right? He's willing to be handcuffed. He called you because his daughter was kidnapped. The daughter's mother is the alleged kidnapper,
like, well,
but the problem with the
go
daughter's
locate and
mother
see
was
which way she went on with the dispatch. And I was like, she's left out. And it was like, well, go locate and see which way she went. So I went down the stairs and the officer was walking up. And I was like, my baby's gone. And he ran on the side of me and was like, get on the ground. I'm like, no, I'm not getting on the ground. My baby's gone.
Cockrell says that's when a second officer came and he was pulled to the ground and detained.
So what is going on with your baby mama?
She's a dope kid.
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
This morning.
You're going to stay on the ground.
Hey, man, don't touch me no more. I swear to God, don't touch me.
You brought this upon yourself.
Man, I'm pissed off. Don't feel somebody got your kid.
And he was like, she's in the intersection. When I heard intersection, it freaked me out. I'm thinking they didn't got hit by a car. So I'm like, why are you in front of me? You know, it's irritating me. I called you.
Yeah, what you talking about?
Stay over there. You stay over there. In a statement, Mesa police wrote, the man appeared upset as his daughter was just taken and displayed a high level of emotion, which is understandable. However, because emotions were so high, he was not obeying the officer's commands and made comments that spiked concern for officer safety.
I'm nervous. I don't know where my kid at. I don't know the situation. And I'm frantic. I'm in a frantic pace. My heart racing. I'm scared. I'm not feeling like I'm this father that's supposed to be protecting his child.
Darnay's handcuffs were eventually removed after more officers arrived. His daughter was found, and his ex, Nicole Connor Sharp, was booked into jail for disorderly conduct under the domestic violence law. Police say Cockrell told them she appeared to have been under the influence of drugs, and records show she is homeless. Police wrote in a statement, Cockrell filed an internal affairs complaint. The complaint was handed down to the district commander to investigate, which was cleared as unfounded. The statement goes on to say the officer's actions were not in violation of department policy. However, upon reviewing body-worn camera video, it was determined that supplemental training would be beneficial for both officers, as there is always room for improvement.
Saying that they need supplemental training tells me that that's a contradiction of a statement that he just read off, because if they need some more training, that mean they're not properly trained for the job.
Wow. Um, the his the mother of the child is allegedly on drugs, and he was very concerned. Um, just even by their statement alone, they had no reason to handcuff him. They had no reason to put him on the ground, and that officer taunting him. You see the the supremacy of it all. The supremacy of it all. And yeah, Bobby, supplementary training is crazy. Is absolutely ridiculous. And as a result of the video, as a result of him getting arrested, I mean, well, detained. He wasn't arrested. Apparently, their reports say that his employer saw him getting handcuffed and immediately terminated him. Immediately terminated him. So this guy gets his daughter gets kidnapped. He calls the police. The police make him the criminal, and he loses his job. Now he has filed notice of intent to sue. Um, but man, you talk about you talk about things to be concerned about because this is only going to get worse. You say, how can it get any worse? We've had George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Michael Brown, etc. Well, under Project 2025, things will only get worse. They're going to eliminate all protections when it comes to civil rights. So, Bobby, so the employer and I scoured his the sheets that they have here, and I scoured the the report from the Mesa Police and also various outlets that did report this out in Arizona, and no one mentioned the name of the employer. Something that we're going to continue to look for, Bobby. I can promise you that because whether it's later today, whether it's later in this show or tomorrow or the next day, once I find out, we're gonna make sure to blast out who this employer is. Um, Vice President Kamala Harris and Republican nominee Trump are reportedly at odds over whether to allow uh, ABC News to mute the candidates' microphones when it's not their turn to speak during the planned September 10th presidential debate. Of course, Trump now hints that he may not show up for the debate. For the Harris campaign, they believe that Trump's and Harris's microphones should be on throughout the debate. The vice president and spokesperson has confirmed that. But Trump said his campaign agreed to the same rules regarding microphones in place for the first presidential debate, which was a match between him and Joe Biden, hosted by CNN, that disgusting job CNN did back in June. Um, but Biden exited the race, of course, following the debate after his performance raised some concerns. But before the face-off, his campaign had laid out its parameters for the debates and said the candidates' microphones should be active only when it's time to speak. Um, so, um, Vice President Harris's spokesperson, Brian Fallon, came out and said that we have told ABC and other networks seeking to host a possible October debate that we believe both candidates' mics should be live throughout the full broadcast. Says our understanding is that Trump's handlers prefer the muted microphone because they don't think that their candidate can act presidential for 90 minutes on his own. Now, look, that statement in itself is already proven to be true time and time again. And now comes word that Trump's camp is at odds with Trump himself. And Bobby says, we know Trump is not going to debate VP Harris for further embarrassment. Would you? Well, You would think not. And it's looking more and more like he will not debate her. But it wouldn't surprise me because this guy has he's displayed absolutely zero respect for women, but women of color in particular. And I don't know that he wants it to be perceived that he backs out. And I think he wants to, and we should remember, many do remember his debate with Hillary Clinton and the shocking thing that we had never seen before, and how he stalked her on that stage, and I mean uncontrollably went and stood over her, and did these things that that standing over where a man tries to intimidate a woman, and a weak man does that, and that's what we saw. And for people to, even if you're in his corner, this is what I don't understand. Well, I can't say I don't understand. I've seen it a lot with celebrities in particular. But when they're doing something so egregious, where's the where's the persons or person, whether it's a family member, whether it's a comms person, a good friend, say, hey, come on, you got to cut that out. And Mike B says he stalked Hillary in the same way he stalked Stormy Daniels. David Youngblood says, I don't have him showing up. Yeah, look, I'm sure Vegas has their odds too. Power 6 says, speaking of CNN, they just caught with the yes, they was just caught with a fake independent voter in a focus group. The guy is a diehard Trumper. He was exposed by social media. I don't know if anybody, if many others caught that. And this is once again, you can't trust polls, and but just as much as you can't trust polls, you cannot trust when and the networks do this. They put on these so-called um, undecideds, and they do this panel with them, and they start talking about this candidate and that candidate. Well, CNN, after their disgustingly horrible moderation or lack of moderation of a debate back in June, continues to go by the wayside. They had a guy up there who's supposed to be an undecided, and he starts in on his
Vice President
support.
Harris, where the Midas Touch Network uncovered that at least one of the individuals on that so-called undecided voter panel had a social media history of being very supportive of Donald Trump. Subsequent to our reporting, that individual named Bryant Rosado made a number of posts where he said that he had told CNN that he was a Trump supporter and that he intended to vote for Donald Trump a week before he was put on that panel. Here is the statement that we received from CNN. We've asked follow-up questions of CNN, and they said they would not provide further information. Here's the official statement from CNN. They say the following, quote, when building the panel of voters who haven't decided on a candidate, all participants made it clear that they indeed hadn't made a final determination. This particular individual, who said he had supported Donald Trump in the past, expressed to us that after President Biden dropped out of the race, his mind became open and he hadn't make a final decision on a candidate. And we were told to attribute that to a CNN spokesperson. So in response to CNN's statement, we then asked CNN the following questions. One, why didn't CNN disclose to viewers that this individual was a Trump supporter? Two, why didn't CNN disclose to viewers that this individual appeared critical of Mike Pence's decision to certify the 2020 election and reposted mugshot photos of Donald Trump from Donald Trump Jr., among others, saying that Trump is, quote, coming for the deep state, posts which were identified from his public social media history on X, formerly Twitter. And you can see some of those posts right there. 3, does CNN do any due diligence at all of its participants' social media history? And was it done in this instance? 4, Rosado says that he informed CNN that he intended to vote for Donald Trump just 1 week before the panel took place in the race against Vice President Kamala Harris. And in response, Rosado says that CNN asked him if he would then keep an open mind after he had already stated that he was intending to vote for Donald Trump. So then we asked CNN, is that an accurate recitation of the facts? And if so, why was that not disclosed? CNN refused to provide any public statements.
That's CNN. That is CNN. From what they what they used to call CNN, the leader in cable news or something like that, the most trusted. They had never been trusted. They're not trustworthy. They mislead their viewers constantly. And unreal. Well, and speaking of unreal, we got another yeah, most disgusting. We have another really vow thing to share. And it's it's from your friendly neighborhood Trump. Friendly neighbor Trump, right? And his people, right? Um, he set the tone in his numerous attempts to disparage the vice president, um, in an effort to keep her from the White House in November. However, his allies have taken things even farther. This right here.
Group cites notorious Dred Scott ruling as reason Kamala Harris can't be president. The National Federation of Republican Assemblies, NFRA, has cited the infamous 1857 Dred Scott Supreme Court decision, which stated that enslaved people weren't citizens, to argue that Vice President Kamala Harris is ineligible to run for president according to the Constitution. The group also challenged the right of Vivek Ramaswamy and Nikki Haley to appear on Republican primary ballots. The Republican group's platform and policy document noted that the constitutional qualifications of presidential eligibility states that no person except a natural-born citizen shall be eligible, or a citizen of the United States, at the time of adoption of this constitution, shall be eligible to the office of president.
I accept your nomination to be president of the United States of America.
Republican group cites notorious Dred Scott ruling as
Wow. So in other words, this huge Trump ally, this group, says that Kamala Harris cannot be president. What it boils down to, they're saying she's a slave. And you remember the Dred Scott decision, of course. Slaves were not considered to be citizens. And yes, Power 96, Black Republicans are mighty quiet about this, as they are about so many other things. And that's the other thing. And that's what I'm saying earlier about somebody in your family. How do you, and in this case, like no matter what, Byron Donalds, Tim Scott, folks like that, they're going to defend it. They're going to defend the indefensible. It would give them what they don't seem to understand or care about is credibility, because it would give them a modicum of credibility to denounce something like this. Even it seems within their own circles, it would not harm them. But for the overall, You mean to tell me you cannot condemn this? But of course you wouldn't, because Byron Donalds, of course, says that black folks had it better under Jim Crow. Daniela Pierre says, wait, isn't he a felon? He and his supporters need to sit this out. Yeah, that hasn't moved them. That hasn't moved them. But I would guess, though, when you talk about undecideds, true undecideds, or true independents, it probably has turned some of them off. Some, operative word, some, not a lot, but some of them off. And those are the people that may have cast their vote for Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is now um, publicly and purely ensconced into MAGA world, looking for a job. He RFK reportedly peddled himself to Vice President Harris, who whose camp told him to keep walking, and now he's with Trump, who they're again supposedly talking a cabinet position for him. Perhaps RFK Jr. would be the Dr. Fauci of the new Dr. Fauci of the Trump administration. Mike V says the anti-DEI, anti-affirmative action movement is in full motion. Yeah, we've been seeing that, and that's what we've been saying. Like, talk about Project 2025. It's already, parts of it is already taking effect, because you have Project 2025 members inside the Supreme Court. You can't tell me that Clarence Thomas and John Roberts and Alito, you can't tell me those guys and they're not products of the Heritage Foundation. I mean, look, Clarence has taken money from anybody who's willing to give it, and I'm sure the Heritage Foundation is taking care of him. RFK, Pound 96 says RFK is going to take one of those black jobs in the Trump administration. But the idea that there would be no condemnation of this, it's ridiculous. It's disgusting, but it's just not going to happen. Like we said, Byron Donalds already told you, look, when they were freely using the N-word and calling men, black men, boy, et cetera, when Emmett Till allegedly whistled at a white woman, he was lynched. And Byron Donalds will tell you, oh, those were the good old days. That's what Byron Donalds will tell you. That's what he has said, pretty much. You know, when I can see an explanation in which, and this is not what he said, in which he said families had to stick even closer together. We had to fight together because of the oppressiveness of Jim Crow. Okay, maybe you could, but he made it clear that's not what he was talking about. He said things were better. The family was better. Black families had it better, or better off. It's like saying after being sold from Master Johnson to Master Smith, oh, things were a little bit better under Master Johnson. He only whipped me 20 times a day. Master Smith whips me 22 times a day. I mean, give me a break. Folks, some history is made in Major League Baseball, some odd history. When Danny Jansen became the first Major League baseball player in history to play for both teams in the same game, when the Boston Red Sox and the Toronto Blue Jays resumed a game that was suspended back on June 26th. Now, let me explain to you what happened. How did this happen? So, Danny Jansen, in that June 26th game, was a member of the Toronto Blue Jays. He was up at bat when the rains poured down at Fenway Park in Boston. And he had an 0-1 count, one strike on him, and the game was then suspended. Well, after the game was suspended, about a month later, he was traded from the Toronto Blue Jays to the Boston Red Sox. Well, they had a game to play to make up yesterday. And in that game, Danny Jansen, of course, was the catcher for the Toronto Blue Jays. So obviously, he could not put on a Toronto Blue Jays uniform. So what happened was they pinch hit, obviously, for him. The Blue Jays did. While his turn at bat was taking place, he was the catcher for the Red Sox. The guy who went to bat for him struck out. But what would have been interesting is this. So if you have two strikes, it's your official at bat. So whatever happens, even if you don't finish the at bat, if somebody comes up and takes your place with two strikes, whatever happens, it becomes whatever happens on the negative side, I should say. Because if the guy who takes your at bat gets a hit, it's charged to his record. But if he makes an out, it's charged to yours. So if there's two strikes, so Danny Jansen could have caught his own strikeout. He could have caught his own strikeout. So that's how it was made, folks. I hope you understood that this guy was playing for the Blue Jays. It's the same game. They had to finish the game. It's the same game. It goes in the books. So if you are into box scores, I know Power 96 certainly knows what we're talking about. The box scores. If you look at the box score today from yesterday, it'll show Danny Jansen was the catcher for both the Toronto Blue Jays and the Boston Red Sox in the same game. And it's not two people with the same name. It's one person, Danny Jansen. I just thought that was funny. I just thought it was interesting. When you think that you've seen it all when it comes to sports, something always comes up to take its place. So the game was resumed. Of course, and it was. Here's the great thing: so the Blue Jays won the game. The last batter of the game was Danny Jansen, and he struck out. No wonder they traded him. No wonder why they traded him. So the Red Sox, and the good thing for Danny Jansen is that his former team, the Toronto Blue Jays, are in last place, while the Red Sox are currently in third place, still with an outside shot of making the playoffs. So Danny Jansen, he may have struck out to end that game yesterday, but he's in a more positive position with the Red Sox with a chance, at least a small chance to make the playoffs. So good for Danny Jansen. That plaque, that some of the gear, I should say, they said will go to the Hall of Fame. Maybe his catching gear will go to the Hall of Fame to be displayed with the plaque that shows that he is the only player to ever play for both teams in the same game. There have been guys who played for two different teams in the same day, but never in the same game. So there you have it. A little bit of baseball history for you guys. It's sports time anyway because football season, the NFL is about to kick off. I know Power 96 and his SWAC conference, they are in full swing, ready to go. He's got his show on, I think he's at Thursdays or Wednesdays and Fridays or something like that. You got to remind us, Power 96. You got to send us an invite so we can make sure we watch it. HBCU football is from Thursday night to Monday. He says, what a time to be alive. Let the tailgating begin. So college football, pro football, And very, very shortly, and the NBA and the NHL will be in action Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 7:30 p.m. on YouTube. Check out Power 96's SWAC Sports. We will be checking them out Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 7:30 p.m. It's that time again. And folks, remember to, hey, also subscribe to Power 96's YouTube page, the SWAC Sports YouTube page, and LIBK-News. And Mike V is asking, will Let It Be Known be covering the debate on the 10th live? Will we be covering it? Absolutely, yes, we will be covering it. How we will be covering it, we'll let you know soon. But thanks for asking, Mike. And we're glad you'll be looking for us because we'll be bringing you something for sure. You can count on that. So check us out. And folks, it's Tuesday. Have a great Tuesday. And Wednesday is hump day. We'll be getting over the hump. We'll see you then.